if you all also want some, I don't know, memory of that, or to write down the tips that you may hear here, then you should definitely record either, or you can write down all the stuff that I'm about to say, because I will try not to go very fast. I will try to go slow because I don't know all of your levels, and hopefully you will all be able to understand me equally. So welcome to the seminar called Saving Time on the SAT. My name is Emin Tolukan, and I am a professional SAT tutor. And for those who don't know me and who are wondering, why should I listen to this person's advice? And is he even experienced, or is he one of those guys that is just starting out? Let me introduce myself. I was born in Almaty, Kazakhstan. I was grown up in Kazakhstan, basically, and I was raised basically in Kazakhstan, but then I traveled all over the world, starting from east to west, and right now I am in Munich, Germany. I am a graduate of Middle East Technical University, which is the #1 technical university in Turkey, as rated by this year's standards, and also previous years have shown that Middle East Technical University is the best technical university in Turkey. So I had the pleasure of studying there and finishing my bachelor's in aerospace engineering. I'm currently a master's student at the Technical University of Munich, and here I am doing my master's in aerospace engineering. My interests are helicopter technologies and aircraft engines. And as you can see here, I have worked as a freelance tutor for 5 years, and I've been teaching students SAT. But not only that, I have also worked in the aerospace engineering, and I have actually designed aircraft engines and helicopter parts. Either way, my experience with the SAT goes way back. Probably when you didn't hear about this exam, when you didn't know yet about it, I was already teaching it or studying it. So I will share all of the experience that I have about SAT's time management with you, so that you can actually use these tips and maybe get a better score. The tips that I'm about to share here, if you really use them, will improve your score by at least 30 points. And I'm saying at least. They may improve your score by 100 points. Depends on to what extent you use these tips. You may use some of them, you may use all of them. Either way, I promise you, if you stick with me until the end of the seminar, it will take around 30-35 minutes. Then you will learn a lot of useful stuff. So does everybody understand me so far? Can you all hear me? And am I speaking too fast or maybe too slow? All right, everything is good. Perfect. So from now on, I'm not going to be cutting off myself and the seminar with these questions. We're just going to assume that everything is fine and continue. So problems with the SAT. Many of you are probably international students and you're getting ready for the SAT, but there are a couple of problems with it. First of all, there is time pressure, especially on the new digital test. The time pressure is a little bit higher than in the past. Many people may argue, but now, especially in the verbal section, there are new passages and many long passages and long answer questions. And thinking about the time, 30 minutes for 20 plus questions, that's too much. That's too much questions and too little time. The other aspect of the SAT that is difficult for especially international students, but also for American students, is difficult language level. The English language level required for the SAT, at least to understand the passages, not even to solve the questions, is C1. That means native level. And we need to somehow solve this problem. I mean, isn't there a shortcut? Isn't there an easier way? Well, we will talk about that. And another problem is that SAT requires specific knowledge of topics. You cannot just go to the exam without preparation. I'll be honest with you. I have had students that wanted to write the exam without any prior knowledge of grammar, mathematics. They just took the school courses and they went and they hoped for the best. But if you know some topics on the SAT, it's going to be easier for you. If you don't know those topics, it's going to be a little bit harder for you. We will discuss what types of topics these are, and I will explain to you where you can find them and how you can study for them. So SAT is getting digitalized. It's going to be completely digital by the spring of 2024. Right now, international students are writing the digital SAT test. So today, we're going to focus specifically on the digital test, the new SAT. And what we're going to do is we're going to discuss all the tips specifically for the digital SAT, but they also do apply for the paper-based SAT, okay? So how to save time on the exam? This is the question of today's seminar. So for you, today I will present 6 tips that are going to help you save time, and I will explain each one of them. I am sure that most of them you have not heard about before, and most of them will sound ridiculous to you, but I will prove to you that it actually works. The number one tip that I have for saving time on the SAT is relieving the time pressure. SAT is a timed exam. You have a limited time. And therefore, while sitting in the exam room, you always think, oh my God, how much more time do I have? Oh my God, do I have enough time to solve this question? And then they say last 5 minutes, and then you get even crazier and more panicky. That's a big problem. 7 years ago, when I was getting ready for the SAT, I realized something controversial. I was sitting down and preparing by solving a practice test, and I decided not to time myself. As in, I decided to put a timer on my phone, put it aside, and just focus on the exam and not look at the time at all. And it helped. I was more relaxed. I could solve the questions easier. I was able to focus on the questions and not on the panic and not on the time. And this has really helped me to improve my score. Just by ignoring the time, I was able to raise my score by 80 points. And my students that we have studied with have also done this experiment, and all of them have said that not looking at the time has helped them to be more relaxed, less stressed, and therefore finish the topics and the questions on time. This is crazy and very controversial, but this is why in the new Blue Book application, you actually have the hide the time option. So I'm going to show it to you. We're now opening a practice test on Blue Book, which is the new application for the digital SAT. And as you can see here, you have the timer. You can hide it. Why? Because you don't need it. The timer is a reference. It is not your guide. It's a reference. It's a reference for you to know how much time you have, but it doesn't mean you have to always know how much time you have. My friend, you are focusing on the exam, not on the time. And by doing that, you will be able to solve these questions with less stress, with more focus, and most importantly, your brain will be concentrated. Our brain cannot concentrate on 2 things at once. We can only concentrate on one thing in a single moment. And if you can concentrate on the question rather than on the time, you will be able to solve these questions correctly, more successfully. So I hope everybody understands this. And this is something that takes a risk. Obviously, doing this for the first time on the SAT, basically hiding the time and ignoring it completely, it's going to be a risk for you if you have never done this before. So I suggest next time that you're writing a practice test, try to hide the time and see the improvement in your performance. I assure you, you will be less stressed, more focused, and overall, you will be able to finish on time, or at least better than in the past, because you were thinking only about the questions, okay? So that was our controversial tip number 1. In order to relieve the time pressure, which means take away the time pressure from yourself, stop panicking about the time. In order to do that, you must hide the time on the exam and not look at it. Rather, think about the fact that you have to be fast, you have to be very, very quick because you have a time pressure, but don't think about it at the same time because you don't have to look at it all the time. In the last 5 minutes, the Blue Book application will notify you about the fact that you have only 5 minutes left. And so then you can actually start rushing a little bit, or picking the choices that you have not picked yet. So for example, if you have last 5 minutes and you have last 5 questions, it's pretty much enough to solve them. But if you have last 5 minutes and I don't know, 10 or 15 questions, then you have to just pick, because you're not going to lose anything. You can solve around 5 questions in 5 minutes, maybe even more, depending on the difficulty of the question. But you should definitely never leave any answers blank on the SAT, because they're not going to cut points. If you leave these answers blank, if these answers are blank, you are going to lose points. So you should just fill them up randomly. If you feel like you have only 1 minute left and you can't solve anymore, at least fill them up so that maybe a few of them are randomly correct, okay? All right, let's go to the tip number 2. What do you see here? Warm up. What type of warm up are we talking about? This is not a physical activity, this is an exam. As you know, Olympic swimmers and any other Olympic sportsmen, they warm up before the Olympic Games, before their performance. Even singers warm up their voice by drinking hot stuff and practicing in the practice room. Warm up is the key component of success in any aspect of life. What you have to do before the SAT begins is read for 13 minutes before the exam to warm up your attention. Think about this. If you come to the exam room and if you just start reading, the first time you read in the morning is while the exam has begun, the time is ticking, you will lose time to warm up during the exam. So why not do it earlier? Why not warm up before the beginning of the exam so that on the exam you are 100% concentrated and ready? So here is the waiting room. Let's say you are in the waiting room for the exam. Your exam is about to begin. You have two options. You can either pick a book, go somewhere silent and start reading and understanding and warming up your reading skill, or you can chat with your friends, gossip about the exam, and get all the negativity from them. Sometimes chatting with friends is good. They can relieve your stress, etc., etc. But sometimes it is conversely bad. Why? Because they may say, oh my God, I heard this exam is going to be super hard. I heard that it's impossible to write this exam. Put all type of negativity into you. Why do you need that? You don't. You don't need to chat with your friends before the exam. This is your exam. In the university applications, they will be looking at your score. Okay? So that's your paper, that is your future, that is your certificate. That's why sit down alone like this and start reading. You may ask me, isn't this going to lose my precious energy? Before the exam, if I read for 30 minutes, I will get tired. My friend, you are not trying to solve a question. You are just trying to warm up. Yes, warm up takes a little bit of energy, but it will give you back so much more. Because if you have warmed up, if you have read a little bit before the exam, when you go to the exam and sit down to start solving the questions in the verbal section, you know, the SAT begins with the verbal section, you are going to be so much faster. You will actually save time in the first module, in the first part of SAT's verbal section. So warm up is something that not a lot of people do. And when I ask you, what should you do 30 minutes before the exam? For a successful score and for better speed and time management, you have to warm up. This tip has helped several of my students in the past 2 digital SATs. I have had students from Kazakhstan, students from other Eastern and Western countries. And around here, all the students have reported that they had an increased score just because they warmed up, and it made them feel better and more confident. Tip number 3. Now we're coming to the interesting part, the practical part, where I will give you some advice on technical aspects of the SAT, how to solve questions faster. Know your shortcuts. SAT is a long exam. You may have noticed that this is too much. What is this? That's too much. Like, how am I supposed to solve this in 30 minutes? This is also too much, and this is too much. In fact, this is also very long. How are you supposed to solve this exam in such a limited time if all the passages are long and all the questions look complicated? Well, you have to know some shortcuts. Now, where can you learn the shortcuts from? You can either learn the shortcuts from the people that have taken this exam and have proven that the shortcuts work, or from some course books that are available for money, of course, or from other courses. I do not know how other courses teach because I have never attended any other course. I do not know how other course books teach because I do not read course books for the SAT. I purely work with experience, and I have given my students some shortcuts that have worked for me in my time of the SAT, and all those shortcuts still up to today work very well. Okay, so you can learn a whole bunch of shortcuts in my full SAT video course. It is available online. I have around 20 hours of math videos and 10 hours of verbal section videos where I explain every single question type with their shortcut. And I'm going to demonstrate to you what I mean by shortcuts. There are shortcuts for every single question type of the SAT, believe me. So number one shortcut is the Desmos calculator for the math section. What am I talking about? Desmos calculator is this calculator that you have on the Blue Book application. By visiting this website, www.desmos.com, you will be able to access this calculator. What can this calculator do? It's an amazing tool. First of all, it can solve systems of linear equations. For example, on the SAT, you get a question like this, okay? They give you two linear equations, and they ask you where these equations cross. They cross nowhere. These are parallel equations. And by just plotting them into Desmos, you will find out that this system of linear equations has no solutions, because when two lines never cross each other, that means the system has no solutions. Shortcut number one. Shortcut number two. Sometimes they give you a graph and ask, how does this graph look like? Well, you can just plug it. Even if you have never seen that graph before, you will be able to understand how it looks like just by plugging it into Desmos. This graph is not a line, it is a little bit curved. So you will be able to see, okay, this is how my graph looks like. And then you will be able to pick the right answer. Next, circle equation. Do you know that you can actually graph the circle? If not, then Desmos calculator can help you. So whenever you have a circle equation problem, you can plot your circle and you can see how it looks like and what the radius of the circle is, or where is the center of that circle, etc., etc. And finally, the biggest tool that we have to be able to use on the SAT is solving the quadratic equations. And Desmos calculator can solve quadratic equations. What is the solution to a quadratic equation? Or the root, or the x-intercept? The solution, the root, or the x-intercept of a quadratic equation that you can see on the screen right now is the points where that equation crosses the x-axis. And here we can see those points. Desmos calculator shows them to us. So this is an amazing tool. And therefore, you have to learn how to use it efficiently. Again, in my full SAT video course, I explain how to use Desmos calculator in every type of question. Another tip that I have for you is this: Desmos calculator is not a stupid calculator. You can use several lines. For example, you can do something right here, and then it will give you a separate answer. You can plot another linear equation right here, and it will give you a separate line. And then do division right here, and then it will give you out the answer as well. So you see how many things you can do. You can multitask with the Desmos calculator. Let's go over some mathematics shortcuts, okay? So take a look at this question. Which of the following could be the x-coordinate of the solution of the system of equations above? Whenever they say system of equations on the SAT, you have to understand these two equations should be plotted together on Desmos. That's it. That's all you have to understand. So what you have to do is you just have to plot these equations in Desmos. We're gonna try to do that now. So let's plot this one. X plus 2 squared plus y minus 3 squared. Bear with me, this is not boring. This is going to be super useful. Is equal to 40. And then y is equal to negative 2x plus 4. Take a look at that. My Desmos calculator has plotted this question for me. Okay, what do I see? I see a line and I see a circle. Now it says, which of the points is a solution to the system of equations? What is a solution to a system of equations? A solution to a system of equations is the point where two graphs cross each other. Here we have one point where two graphs cross each other, and here's the other point where two graphs cross each other. What should we be looking at? Our unknown is x. We don't know x. Unknown is the x, okay? So we should be looking at the x coordinate of the point where these graphs cross each other. What is the x coordinate here? 2.646. What is the x coordinate here? Negative 2.646. We don't have any negative answers. So what we should do is we take the positive one, 2.646, but we don't have 2.646, so we should plug A, B, C, and D into Desmos calculator. Yeah, let's do that. And it's going to give us, by the way, another shortcut. How do you write a square root in Desmos? This is the square root. You just say SQRT, and there you go. Square root of 7. It's 2.646. And this solution to our equation, set of equations, is also 2.646. So the answer is A. You didn't have to do anything by hand. You didn't have to write anything down. All you had to do is plug these two equations into Desmos calculator, and you had to analyze where they cross each other, and the x coordinate of the solution is your correct answer. So does anybody understand what we did here? Okay, somebody said yeah. Okay, hopefully. Well, perfect. Now, the next thing we can do, we can use statistical shortcuts. What does it mean? Sometimes you will get questions like this on the SAT. Now, my students know exactly what these questions are about, because these types of questions where you have graphs like this are about standard deviation and the mean or the average. You may ask, what the heck is standard deviation and the average? I don't know what this is. Well, let me tell you something. You can represent data in this way. What does it mean? You have only one 49.8, you have four 49.9s, you see here. You have one 50.2, etc., etc. So each of these dots represent how many 49.8s or how many 49.9s you have. Now you have to understand that for data sets like this, we call them symmetrical data sets. Symmetrical means, I mean, they look symmetrical, right? So these are symmetrical data sets. For symmetrical data sets, the middle number is the mean. The mean or the average number is the middle number. So if they ever ask you, what is the average of this data set? You have to say it's 50. How easy is this? Well, it's a shortcut. So what can you say about these two data sets? Both of them have the same mean because both of them are symmetrical, and in both of them, the middle number is 50. So both of these data sets have a mean of 50. So both data sets have the same standard deviation. I don't know yet, but I know that they both have the same mean. What is standard deviation? Standard deviation is how close the numbers are to the mean. In order to find the standard deviation, you need to know the mean. The mean in both data sets is 50. How close are the numbers to the 50? Here, the numbers are closer to 50 than in dataset S, where the numbers are a little bit more far away from 50. Do you see that? I hope you can see that. One of the triangles is like close, the other one is like a little bit spread out. So in this case, standard deviation means difference, how far away the numbers are from the mean, is larger in dataset S. Why? Because numbers are far away from the mean, so the standard deviation is larger. In that dataset R, standard deviation is lower because numbers are closer to each other. This is another statistical shortcut that you have to know for the SAT. Do you guys understand what I'm talking about? How I'm showing it with my hands, maybe. This makes a little bit sense. Yeah,
Sorry, can you explain it again?
Yeah, I can
standard
repeat. Yes, of course, of course. So here's the shortcut, man. So listen. So This is a data set. You have different points, different numbers, etc. When you have numbers that are spread out far away from the mean, the standard deviation is high. That means numbers are different. Numbers are far away. When you have numbers or dots that are closer to each other, like look at this case, they are closer to each other compared to this case where they are far away. So when numbers are closer to each other, standard deviation is lower. Do you understand?
So in the dataset S, their standard deviation is lower than in dataset.
Higher. I'm saying, hey, listen, I'm saying when numbers are close to each other, standard deviation is lower. Look at dataset R. These numbers are closer to each other because standard deviation here is, look at it, how it's spread around, how it's far away.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so this is high standard deviation. This is high standard deviation because numbers are far away. High deviation means high difference. Numbers are different, numbers are far away. This is low standard deviation. Why? Because numbers are closer. That means there's lower difference, less difference in numbers. Do you understand?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. These tips can help you on the SAT because they save time. You don't have to think about this like, oh, I forgot. How do we do this? Oh, no. No, by memorizing these tips, by learning these tips properly, you can save so much time on the SAT. So if an average student needs 5 minutes to solve this question, you will need only 30 seconds. And I'm serious about it. So we come back to the strategy, know your shortcuts. Where can you learn the shortcuts from? You can learn them from courses. My full SAT video course includes all these shortcuts. I explain about standard deviation, systems of linear equations, quadratic equations, statistics, everything that you have to know. About it, I'll explain a little bit later. Hey, and how about verbal section? Because in the survey in my Telegram group, many people said, hey, we have a struggle with this verbal section. We don't have enough time. Well, in the verbal section, there are amazing shortcuts. It's actually such a good opportunity for you because you can use these shortcuts every time and they work every time. There are no exceptions. Number one, using slang. Okay, we have a new guest. Could you please mute yourself? Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so number one verbal shortcut is this: avoid slang. Slang is the words that we're using outside of school. Slang are the words that we use on internet, all right? And this SAT language is academic. It's not street language. It's not YouTube language. This language on the SAT is literature. Do you understand? So saying things like way more or whole bunch or enormous, etc. This is slang. If you want to know what else is slang, I have explained it in a video in my verbal section video course, and I explain literally every single word that should not be used in the SAT answers. So what you should do is you should eliminate those choices immediately. C is eliminated because of slang. A is eliminated because it says way more, and way more, way less, way better, way stronger. This is slang. And therefore, we can understand that B is the right answer. Did I have to read this passage? I didn't have to read it. Did I have to understand it fully? Not really. All I have to do is know some rules that are applicable for all questions on the SAT. Let me tell you about another rule, another very, very important rule. See how the choices here are short, longer, and even longer? You should prefer the shorter answers because in my course I have explained, and to all of my students I have also explained, simplicity is the most important rule on the SAT's verbal section. If you can pick between two choices, let's say if you can pick between B and D, take a look at B and take a look at D. An unusually large crowd and an enormous crowd of an unparalleled nature. Which one of them is simpler? B.
Short is
B,
better.
short is better. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. This is right. Short is better. Why is short better? Everybody thinks that longer is better because on the SAT we're using a complicated English language level. Not really. Because here you are the writer, you are the editor, you have the right to edit the text. And editors usually pick simpler sentence structures, grammar structures, and simpler words. Repetition is not allowed. If you repeat the same meaning or the same word twice in the same sentence, that's not good. Look at this. An enormous crowd of an unparalleled nature. Unparalleled nature means nobody has ever met before. We're talking about a crowd. In a crowd of people nobody has ever met before. That's right. So repeating the same meanings twice is unnecessary. That's not good. And we do not prefer that in our answers on the SAT. There are many examples where this works, and therefore you can actually practice this, and you will see that most of the times the correct answers will be the shorter ones, as long as they are grammatically correct. Another verbal shortcut, tone. When you have words and context questions, you should understand about the tone of the passage. If the tone in the passage is positive, then your answer should also be positive. If the tone in the answer is negative, then your answer should also be negative. Take a look here. The team worked together and managed to complete the project on time. The team worked together, first of all, sense of teamwork, that's good. And also, they completed the project on time. That means they were able to manage it. They were able to finish it. The tone here is positive overall. That's why the answer must also be in positive tone. You have to be consistent. So let's take a look at A. A is victorious, it's positive. Let's take a look at B. Worrisome, negative. Fierce, negative. Desperate, negative. So B, C, and D are eliminated. Of course, for this, you have to possess a certain knowledge of vocabulary. That is not my responsibility to teach it to you, although I can. I always say, if you can do something by yourself, you should do it by yourself. You can actually open a dictionary and research the meanings of these words by yourself. So sit down and do it. But what I can give you is a shortcut that really works. And this does work on the exam. Some people don't use this shortcut explicitly. That means they just say, oh, my intuition says that the answer is victorious. But why does your intuition say it? And should you listen to your intuition on the exam when you are stressed and when everything is going so fast? If your intuition is telling you that everything is positive or everything is negative, then you can listen to it because it's a tip that really works. So in this case, A would be the correct answer. Another shortcut, figure questions. Hey, stick with me. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves and it's too much stuff already, but I will provide a very important tip right now. By the way, everybody who is asking me questions in the chat, I cannot reply right now because I have to teach here, but I will definitely try to reply your questions at the end, okay? So please bear with me, stick with me, and by the end, I will give you information. Right now, just please listen to these tips because these tips come from 5 years of experience of teaching. Okay. So let's take a look here. We have a figure question. You may not have seen this figure ever in your life before the exam. Maybe this is the first time you ever see the figure. In fact, the words in the figure are very unfamiliar to you. Who cares? All you have to do is look at the keywords in the question, according to figure 1. So I'm going to just be looking at figure 1. Which of the following is closest to the mean number of aggressive interactions? Mean number of aggressive interactions. Okay, so I should be looking at this or this or this. Okay. Initiated in pairs of red-headed finches. Red-headed, where do I see this keyword? Oh, it's right here. So I should be looking at this number. My answer is 2. I don't know what this graph is about. I have never seen it before, but I know how to follow keywords, and I will be able to solve this question just by following the keywords. Sometimes they give you a lot of information, and on the 30-minute exam, it's impossible to use all of that information, but you can just follow the keywords sometimes and you will be able to solve these questions easily. And the final shortcut that I have for you is this, and it's very important. On the verbal sections, words and context questions in the digital SAT, you will always get questions where you have a blank and a colon. Does anybody know what a colon means? What it does in a sentence? Can you guys give me an answer while I'm drinking my water?
Maybe like some kind of facts.
That's good. In fact, the colon is used to introduce extra information, facts, or support that supports the first part of the sentence. That means here we're going to have a fact that supports the first part of the sentence. So this fact will contain keywords that are missing right here. Basically speaking, by reading this fact, you will be able to understand what type of a keyword you need here. It says, by 1830, over 90% of these people could read and write. Over 90% of people.
Widespread.
It's widespread, exactly. So by reading those keywords, you can actually find your correct answer. Widespread means famous and popular, and therefore it is the correct answer because over 90% of people use something that means this thing is widespread thing. Perfect. So these types of shortcuts can actually save you a lot of time on the exam. You do not have to always read the entire passage. The College Board knows that. College Board knows that students will be stressed on the exam. They know that not everybody can read fast. They know that many foreign students are taking this exam, and they want you to know these tips. And again, over 1,000 tips I have shared in my full SAT video course that is on my website. So if you ever need to know those things in an entertaining way, that means not by reading a book and researching them by yourself, but just by listening, I explain all these tips in my full SAT video course. The next thing that I have for you is this. You may hate me for giving you this advice, but there is no way to avoid this. Improve your reading speed. I mean, how many of you are foreign students? How many of you are not in the US? I see here some foreign names. So I suppose 90% of you are. Well, if English is not your native language, it's not your mother tongue, then you probably do not possess a really good reading speed unless you have finished the bachelor's or master's in English language, because there you have to read a lot and so you gain experience. At high school level, you really can't read fast. No matter how much you read, you still won't be able to read as much as a person that has finished an undergraduate degree or a master's degree or a doctorate degree. In fact, in the United States of America, the average speed of students in reading is 230 words per minute. And for foreign students across all the Eastern and Middle Eastern countries, it is 110 words per minute. Why is that? There are a few very important reasons that I will open your mind about, because if you know this, the next time you're reading, your speed is going to improve like crazy. So how am I going to improve my reading speed? First of all, stop reading with your mouth. When you're reading with your mouth, your reading speed becomes equal to your speaking speed, to your pronunciation speed. How fast do you speak English? Do you speak English very fast? If not, then while reading, you should not use your mouth. You should not whisper, and you should not even move any muscles in your mouth. You should read with your eyes. Because if you read with your eyes, your reading speed will be your thinking speed. If you read with your mouth, your reading speed will be your speaking speed. And everybody's thinking speed is faster than their speaking speed. People who speak faster than they think are nonsensical people. I don't like to listen to those people because they just give nonsense, because they don't think what they talk about. But if you think faster than you speak, then you can read with your eyes, and you can read faster and faster and faster. Next, what else is there to improve your reading speed? First of all, doing this is going to take some time. Today, if you go and take a book in your hands and focus by reading with your eyes, your body will want to move your mouth. Every time your body wants to move its mouth while reading, you should shut it up. You should say, no, I'm not going to move my mouth. And you should focus again with your eyes. It will require some practice, but once you gain experience in reading with your eyes, I promise you, your reading speed is going to be at around 200 words per minute at least. Okay? Next, another big problem is complicated words. While we're reading, we stumble upon words that we have never seen before, and this stops us. This makes us think, what the heck is this? I have never seen this before. I'm not going to understand the sentence because I don't know this word. That's a problem. How can we solve this problem? If you learn 10 words today, tomorrow it will be easier for you to understand sentences with those 10 words. If you learn 10 words every single day, at the end of the year, 3,600 words, you will basically improve your language to the next level. This requires persistence. If every day you learn complicated English C1, C2 level words, your reading speed will go up immensely. That means very fast, very crazy. So, vocabulary is also important, and it's also going to affect your reading speed. In fact, let me give you an example. How do kids read? Kids don't really know how to recognize words with their eyes. Therefore, they put effort into recognizing letters because they have just learned letters. So instead of saying apple, they read it out as A, P, P, L, E, apple. That's how they read. Because kids have to recognize letters and not words. We, adults, we recognize the entire word, consequence. But readers, like kids, would give up because they don't know how to read this out. Now, next, how do average readers read? The average readers read word by word. Every day, Mr. Peters heard his neighbors shout out of the window. That's how average readers read. So now we come to how professional readers read and how those people that score 800 on the SAT's verbal section have to read. They read all words together in chunks. This is what we call a chunk, when all words are combined. Every day, Mr. Peters heard his neighbors shout out of the window. These people don't have a pause because they cannot afford a pause. And you can only do this when you read with your eyes. Basically speaking, this is a representation in an analogical form. This is an analogy. You shouldn't be reading like this. But if you want to read this faster, you cannot pronounce these pauses. Okay, here's a pause. Here's another pause. Here's another pause. Here's another pause. That's not good. So how you are going to be reading from now on is with your eyes, scanning it like a printer. Okay? And that is going to help you. It's going to help you read faster and therefore lose less time. Pro readers do not focus on pronunciation. They don't care how to pronounce the word consequence. They don't think it's, oh, is it consequence, consequence, consequence? They don't care. If they know the meaning, they don't pronounce it in their mind. They just see it and then they go to the next word. That's number one. Number two, they don't focus on blanks, on those spaces in between the words. They don't care about them because they're like scanners. Next, as I said, they scan the text. They don't pause. They just go very fast and scan everything and extract as much information as they can. And since they're
Yes,
not...
and IELTS, yes.
Excuse me, what?
Like in IELTS?
I'm not really sure, Alihan. Could you please write the questions in text form to the chat? Because I would like to reply later, if it's possible. Maybe in IELTS you do read like that. Maybe somebody has taught you. Yeah. Overall, in academic English, you have to read like this, because each exam is going to have a time limit, and you cannot afford to read word by word by word by word. Basically, IELTS, SAT, IGCSE, A-level, all the English exams require you to be able to read faster. And to do that, you have to get used to reading with your eyes, avoiding to pronounce the words correctly, or even to try to pronounce them. Because when you read with your eyes, you're not pronouncing the words, you're seeing them and understanding, seeing and understanding, seeing and understanding. So basically, another tip that is important is to imagine what you're reading. Because when you just see everything and you skip it in mind and think about your girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever, you're not going to focus. So you have to push your imagination to also imagine what you're reading about. For example, in this passage, we have Mr. Peters. I'm going to imagine Mr. Peters as a person with a hat. Heard his neighbors shout out the window. I'm going to imagine my house, my neighbors, and they're shouting out the window, because this is going to help me understand the passage better. By that, I'm going to activate more neurons in my mind while reading, and the information that I read will stay in my mind for longer. Therefore, while reading, you should read with your eyes, avoid pronouncing words, and imagine what you're reading. And this is going to improve your reading speed. This is not a one-day task. It's not going to be solved in one day. This is about experience. So those people that want to go on the SAT without having read a single book in their life, good luck. But those who really have read every day for at least 1 hour and have tried to read with their eyes and improve their reading speed and vocabulary, and of course their imagination, those people will succeed. I promise you. So until the August SAT, we have exactly 50 days. So from now on, it should be your aim to read for at least 1 hour per day, every day, without exceptions. Okay, I'm going on holiday, my family is meeting, I don't know, I have an appointment with my friend. I don't care. This is your future, it's your success. If you really want to improve, you have to be consistent. You have to be reading every single day. There is no exception and there is no shortcut for that, really. The next thing that I want to talk about is, to save time, you need to be familiar with the questions on the SAT. Why? Well, first of all, new things, new experiences excite us as human beings. That's very natural. For example, when we meet somebody new outside, we're very excited. It's very hard for us to talk to them. Our voice is shaking, our hands are shaking. We don't know what to do. But if it's our friend who we're familiar with, we come and shake his hand with our usual handshake, however you do it. And you say, how's your mom? Or how are your parents? How's it going, man? Is everybody healthy? Etc., etc. Because we know these people, we're more comfortable. So if you know your enemy, you will also be very comfortable in the war. You will know where to kick the enemy, where to hit the enemy. If you know the standard questions on an exam, SAT is a standardized exam. Guys, listen carefully. Questions on the SAT repeat. They always have a set of questions that repeat. For example, words and context questions all the time. All right. On the SAT, there are always words and context questions. Go right here, contextual questions, where you have to find the ending. You will get around 2 to 3 questions like this on the SAT all the time. What else do you have? You have punctuation question and simplicity questions. They also repeat all the time. All of those types of questions I have covered on my full SAT video course on my website. So here you will be able to find literally every single question type. I have divided everything into categories. For example, if you want to learn about those questions with many points on the SAT, do you know about these new questions where there are like several arguments, etc., and then you have to summarize it? I explained it because it's a new question type and it appears on the new SAT. So you have to get familiarized with those questions. You have to see them at least 2 or 3 times before actually going on the exam. And most importantly, you have to solve them before going to the exam. Because you will know shortcuts for your own self. You will know how to tackle these questions, how to deal with them on the exam, okay? And you will be ready. This is what it means to be ready for an exam. To be ready for an exam is to see the questions that will come on the exam before the exam. My friends, I'm in Germany right now, in Munich, and this is the #1 technical university in Germany. That means it's the hardest. So what do we do to prepare for exams? We get 36-page exams and we get 90 minutes and we have to do all type of engineering stuff in those exams. Very, very hard. It's not possible to write those exams without prior preparation. So what I do is, a few weeks before the exam, I start practicing by finding similar exams on the internet and solving them. The same thing you should do as well. You should go to digital SAT practice tests on Blue Book and solve them and measure your own skill and measure your own mistakes. If you're writing the paper-based SAT, there are over 40 paper-based SAT tests online. All tests, basically. There are 10 official tests that were published by College Board, but there are also 30 or 40 past papers, basically SAT tests from the previous years. And you can access those online, download them. If you guys want, I can give them to you. Just text me on Telegram and I will text you these SAT paper-based tests and you can practice. But the most important thing is this. In your level as a high school student, you may not know all the topics very well, and there is limited resource available online. Of course, there is Khan Academy, there are some books, etc. They don't cover everything. Why? Because why would they? Covering everything takes time, covering everything takes effort, and not everybody is going to give that effort for you for free. So you have to understand that eventually, if you cannot succeed, you have to enroll to a certain course or buy a certain video course. If you're super smart and super hardworking, you have your own discipline, then you can study by yourself, also with some extra books or extra video files. But if you're a lazy person, and I've had super many students like that, which is quite normal. Being lazy is okay. Like, I'm also lazy sometimes. But if you're super lazy and if you cannot do this on your own, then definitely make sure you find a good course that has been proven to help students gain good scores. They have to have proof, guys. When you're looking for a video course or for a one-on-one SAT course, you have to ask them, hey, how long have you been teaching for? Hey, prove me that your students have gained a good score. Hey, how many students have you taught? If they say, oh, I only taught one student and he gained 1,200, then you should not purchase that course. This is going to be a waste of time for you. That person doesn't know more than you. But if the person comes to you and says, hey, I've been teaching for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and I have had like plus 30 students, and the average score is 1,350, you should definitely consider putting money into it and putting effort into it and putting time into it. You are high school students. It is your parents' responsibility to pay for your courses, etc. You shouldn't even think about this is not your money. This is your parents' money, because right now you cannot support yourself. If you can support yourself, that's even better. But if you cannot, ask your parents to enroll you to a course, because this will be helpful. It's easier to move with guidance than it is to move alone. When I was studying for the SAT, I moved alone because there were no courses, and it was super hard for me. Right now, you can learn everything in 1 month, literally 1 month, if you practice everything every day. For example, on my website, by purchasing my video course, which is only 50 euros, which is cheaper than any video course out there that completely explains the entire SAT, you can practice here for 1 month. I explain literally every single topic here. And then I also provide practice questions that I have created myself in line with College Board rules. So basically, you will be solving similar questions to the SAT here. And I explained everything so that everybody can finish their entire SAT content in less than a month. Okay, less than a month. If you can sit down and really practice and watch these videos, you will be able to finish all these topics in less than a month. Short, and I explain everything. So if you actually can do that, that is going to be the best way to get familiarized with the question types before the exam. Okay. And finally, gain experience. What is experience? Everything is experience. If you're watching a movie and you learned a new word, that's experience. If you read an article online, that is experience. If you watched a video course, that is experience. Every single thing that you do today is going to help you on the exam day. If you're sleeping well, that is also going to indirectly help you because you're a healthy person. You're not going crazy. So gain experience by doing literally everything you can in the direction of SAT. The best thing you can do is read every single day, practice by solving practice questions, and tutor yourself or find a tutor for you to learn all the SAT content. And that is it. Let's summarize everything. How to save time on the SAT. Relieve the time pressure by basically speaking, switching off the timer on the exam. This will make you less stressed. Number 2, warm up. Read a book 30 minutes before the exam so that your eyes and your brain are ready to read during the exam. And so you don't have to warm up and lose time while the exam is proceeding, while the exam is going on. Next, learn shortcuts. Them you can learn on my full SAT video course, and some of them I have explained here, like for example, how to use the Desmos calculator to solve systems of equations questions, etc. Improve your reading speed. We have talked about how to do that. Get familiarized with your enemy and gain experience. So does anybody have any questions now? Somebody said, how can I know that I am ready for digital SAT? Whether it's math or verbal, you can know it by setting a goal. What is your goal? Let's say 1,100, or let's say 1,300. Have you been able to achieve this goal in any of the practice tests? If not, then you're not ready. You should review everything. You should learn it better. If yes, then you are ready. Next. One person has asked about improving reading speed. Is it like IELTS? As I said, yeah, I hope I replied that question. It is like IELTS. In fact, it's like any other exam. Whatever you do for any other exam is also going to help you with the SAT, because you're at the end of the day improving your English language level. So everybody, now I have 5 more minutes to take any questions. If you guys have any questions, then I would love to answer. If not, then we're going to conclude this session and we're going to continue from the Telegram group. By the way, here is my website that includes the entire SAT video course. So if you are wondering about it, and if you want to get 1,500 on the SAT, this is a very easy way to do that. As I said, it's cheaper than any other course online. It is cheaper than having a one-on-one tutor. For example, my one-on-one classes cost 20 euros per hour, but this full SAT video course only costs 50 euros, and it includes everything in math and the verbal section. So please click the link in the chat, and you can actually access the website and see what the course includes and learn. Okay, thank you everybody for joining, and take care.